this is your dead body. You're in another person's body. And she's like looking at herself and she's like, what? Like, I always love that moment. And it's got a lot of like action towards the end. So I don't know. I kind of feel like it's a nice potpourri of everything they've got in store. It's not the best of the best, but I do think it's a nice little entry point into the world.
All right. Well, obviously both of those are great movies, but we're going to be discussing a few more here. Let me share my screen. All right. Okay. So can you guys see my screen here?
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah, like I
Cool.
said, we don't have to do all of them.
That's all right.
I did have these in chronological order, but when I set up the Zoom meeting, it kind of got out of order. But here we have kind of the main Universal movies. Have you guys ever done a tier list before?
I haven't.
Okay.
No, I haven't either. The best I've done is rank everything on Letterboxd.
So, well, it's sort of similar to that. So essentially a tier list is you just kind of put the movies into whatever category. God tier is obviously what you consider the best one, and then it goes down in quality till you eventually hit trash, which is at the bottom there. So it's sort of like ranking, but you just kind of put them into categories rather than putting them in like a numeric list. And I'll also admit that I have not seen all of these movies, but that is where you two come in. So I'm putting faith in you two when it comes to remembering the quality of some of these movies here. But any kind of questions about this before we get started?
I'm just gonna have to say to Dan, my memory is getting jogged from most of the titles, but you might have to remind me of some plots.
Yeah, we did. There's 32 titles that we covered over the course of over 2 years. So
my arch nemesis, Son of Dracula. I see it at the list.
Actually, okay, yeah, let's go.
All right, so starting things off, the first of the Sound Universal monster movies, Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, 1931. I have seen this one, obviously. I've seen pretty much all like the mainstay ones. Where do we see Dracula here on this list?
So we're gonna do this by consensus.
I think we'll do it by consensus. Just get the general.
Sure.
We'll get the general consensus here.
If I'd say it's all right. If it's 1 through 5 like this, it's dead center, I think.
I would say, I want to put it in the good category because I do think that it is a near perfect movie, but there are some choices that I think knock it down a peg. You think?
Well, no, I just wish they played Black Swan through the whole movie. Just play the whole. You have the record. Just. I'm almost playing it at home. The only reason I say all right is because they're just not really there yet. It's almost like the Dracula had the brand name recognition, right? But they didn't quite pull it off. Like it's almost a reverse Iron Man. Like no one knew who Iron Man was, but then they made everyone know who he was with the movie. It's like kind of felt like, didn't really do much for Dracula, but I don't know.
All right, I'll give you all right, and then I'll take one from you later.
Fair.
I was gonna say, if I had to be the tiebreaker for any of these, I'll be the tiebreaker. I also was gonna agree putting it with all right. I was gonna agree with Mike just because, and it's not on this list, unfortunately. There is the Spanish version of this movie, which I do think is slightly better than the Lugosi. The reason, like the Lugosi one is good because it has Lugosi, but I think the Spanish version does better with everything else. So I'm also okay with it going in all right.
It does. Does Dwight Fry show up in the Spanish version though?
No, Dwight Fry doesn't show up, but I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the actor's name off the top of his head, but the actor they have playing Renfield is also like just as good as Dwight Fry. So that is why I also defend. But moving on here, same year, 1931 as well. Frankenstein, the first Frankenstein.
I think that's a God tier.
Pretty much. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, if it's Boris Karloff playing the monster, I have a feeling they're going to be in the high rankings, but Mike, I'll let you say what you want.
I mean, I was just gonna say, like, this is, to me, this was like, this is the template, like Dracula was a nice try. This, to me, has it all. This doesn't even have very much music in it, but you don't notice it because it's like the cacophony of sound, right? He uses like the chains, the lightning, the rain, the screams and the shrieks, like all that stuff creates the world sound and everything. So I don't know, there's just a lot of innovation going on in that at the time as well.
Yeah.
So we're comfortable putting it in the God tier.
Yep.
Yes, please.
All right. So you were just singing its praises here.
Yep.
The Mummy, I believe 1932. Also with Boris Karloff.
Yeah, Dan, what are you feeling? I mean, it's definitely either good or God. It's probably...
My instinct said good.
Yeah, it's probably closer to that because of its sort of reuse of a lot of stuff. It is kind of like, let's just redo what we've been doing with another monster.
Yeah, it does recycle
a
lot of Dracula, but it does do it better than Dracula did. So I feel good is probably where I would put it.
I will say The Mummy probably has, when I think of like the Universal monster movies, I think I usually, my first go-to, like what I associate it with is Mike, you had mentioned with the shadow play, the scene when they first, like when Boris Karloff is first resurrected and you see like his eyes like light up. Like that is probably, I think, one of the most iconic images to come from any of these movies. So for that alone, it does belong in those like top 2 tiers. But then again, Karloff once more, The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, James Wales just can't. I mean, he can't miss. Like this, I like this more than Frankenstein. So I have to say this is God tier.
I'll put it in God tier, but I actually don't love it as much as Frankenstein.
I know you have an issue with the very tiny people, right?
I do.
Yeah. Dr. Pretorius, or I see. For me, that's what elevated it. Is like they're kind of world building a little more and saying like maybe Dr. Frankenstein is not the only mad scientist. Maybe he's not the worst. And I liked how they kind of doubled down on the danger and the threat with that guy. But anyway.
I'm just glad I haven't gotten a lot of hate mail for saying anything disparaging about Bride of Frankenstein. I do mostly like it. It's really just that one bit which sort of takes it out of science fiction and kind of puts it into a fantasy realm in a way that rubs me a little bit wrong. But I think Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein are a great double feature if you were to watch them back to back.
Oh, I think it's one great long movie. Like just watch them. Always watch them back to back if you can.
So you mentioned the little people there in Bride of Frankenstein. Those visual effects were pretty groundbreaking, but effects that were even more groundbreaking come with The Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Just incredible. Like this was my favorite one for a long time. This might be back at my favorite, but I mean, I used to praise this movie every day. Like I love this movie so much, and those effects, like just jaw-dropping. Even that's why I said go back and watch old movies, because this will surprise a lot of modern filmmakers. You're like, what? They could do that back then?
Yeah. This, I mean, straight to God tier as far as I'm concerned. The Invisible Man is our favorite monster.
That's yeah.
And this is I think the best one of all of them. But there's always something fun to see in an Invisible Man movie.
Yeah, no, I think like not only is it impressive visual effects wise, like a lot of the effects still. Like you can sort of tell how they're done in the movie, but they still hold up. And for a movie, again, almost 100 years old, it's insane that they were able to pull it off. But also just the fact that a Universal movie from the 30s the monster of the movie gets a higher kill count than most modern horror villains do.
Yeah.
And like, he kills over 100 people
Yeah.
in the first go around.
Murder spree, a murder spree.
and that's why I might have picked it for my, like, if I was to introduce someone to these movies. Like, it does a lot of stuff that feels very modern, and I think violence is always going to be appealing to a moviegoer.
So, So the streak here has been hot so far with these Universal releases, but then moving on to Dracula's Daughter. Not as famous as some of these other ones, but there is still sort of a fan base there. Where do we see Dracula's Daughter?
I love this one. I'm not going to say it's God tier. There's a lot of very kind of important stuff going on in the subtext of this movie. At the time, like, it's skirting the Hays Code because they're doing a lot of same-sex drama in this movie, or at least they're alluding to it with Dracula's daughter's orientation and her identity and stuff. But like, it unfortunately never quite packs the punch that you're expecting it to when you think of a Dracula sequel. Like, this was the sequel. Like, I'm surprised they went to the daughter so quick. I'm surprised in all that all the Dracula stuff is like his daughter, his son, his dog, his neighbor. But like, I would say it's somewhere between good and all right as far as like,
I would put it in all right, because I don't have it ranked higher than Dracula, but I do think that the things it does that are sort of breaking the mold a little bit are worth celebrating. And I think in a lot of ways it moves a little better than Dracula does, but it's tough. I would say that Dracula has the edge here, but in terms of, if we're going to put everything into 5 categories, I would feel comfortable putting Dracula's Daughter in there with Dracula.
All right. Well, the child of yet another Universal monster, or I guess the Doctor, Son of Frankenstein. This was the one that's obviously not only had Karloff one last time, but also had Bela Lugosi as well. Where do we see Son of Frankenstein?
And Basil Rathbone.
Yes, of course, Sherlock Holmes.
This was the first Igor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved this one. I'll say it's good.
I will say it's good also.
Yeah, like, I remember that episode, Dan, and we were like legitimately like, what is going on here? Like, this is crazy. And I remember he shows up to town. Wait, my big thing about the end of this one was like, they got to change the name of that town from Frankenstein to something else, right? And then every other time we watched it, they still kept the name of the town. I'm like, dude, it's the Kurt. What do you...
Yeah, no, with Son of Frankenstein, the only thing I knock off points for with this movie is in Bride of Frankenstein, Karloff gets to talk. In this one, he's silent again, which is a shame because he is such a great actor. But I think Bela Lugosi more than makes up for it. I think he is kind of one of the few good things that kind of comes out in this later Frankenstein movie. The next one that we have here, Ghost of Frankenstein.
Oh, man, I was a little bummed because don't they take Lugosi's brain and put it in the monster, and then he was supposed to talk through Ghost of Frankenstein, right? And they kind of took that away from his character. But I was so looking forward to keeping that continuity going, and they kind of sort of do, but they pretty much just find him in the sulfur in this one. Like, Dan referred to it, like he keeps getting carbon frozen like Han Solo.
And then his weakness is, I guess, he gets struck by lightning, and that's kind of what does it. That like constantly will either like turn him on or turn him off. Like, he'll get struck by lightning and depower, and then he'll get struck again and he'll get powerful. It's hard.
Yeah, this is sort of the beginning of the Frankenstein monster just becoming the sort of brute tool for whoever the real villain is, right? He's like not a side, more of a henchman, really. Like, just there's a job that needs to be done, go send the monster to go do it. It's sort of strips away anything that made that character interesting. Almost. I mean, with the exception of the brain swap, I do kind of think the brain swap is kind of fun, but they don't really go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing. So I would put this in the category.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. The only reason it's probably there too is because the actual ghost of Frankenstein shows up for a scene. Remember,
That's
Dan?
true. Yes.
I was like, well, it's in the title. So
But so we're taking a quick break here from the established monsters. Now the introduction of a new monster, the Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr.'s sort of big break into the monster universe. Where do we kind of see the Wolfman?
We talked for like over 3 hours when we recorded. we learned the limits of our recording capabilities.
That's right.
Recording the Wolfman episode.
That's right. Yeah, our thing stopped us because we were going to.
I don't know if it should go into God tier. It's definitely at least good. We really love the Wolfman.
I'm trying to think why it wouldn't be God tier though, Dan, because it's like I feel like here it feels like Street Fighter. It's like here comes a new challenger and he's the Wolfman and he's like this movie is almost fully realized.
Yeah.
Well, before this we actually had a Wolfman in the Werewolf of London one, right? Was that it?
Right.
And so like we kind of were a little familiar with the lore a bit, but like I felt like this kind of right out of the gate was more kind of had more elements already that I was familiar with now that had kind of like lasted through the years. Like we don't get the silver bullet, but we get silver stakes or silver knives and things. But you know, I don't know. It's
Yeah, this one does really create the template for what we know of today as werewolf lore and like what we think of as a werewolf movie. You know, all that fog and the forest. You know, like I can't think of a Wolfman movie without. So I would put that in God tier probably for that reason, just because of the of what it did for werewolf movies.
And it's such a strange protagonist too, because like we talked about a lot how Larry just wants to off himself and how horrible his alter ego is and all this stuff, and so it's really hard to root for that kind of character, but it's a very compelling character to watch and to see where that person ends up. So I think for all of that, I'm gonna put it up there.
Yeah, and I think through all the hell that Lon Chaney had to go through to get that werewolf makeup on, I think for his efforts alone definitely should go in God tier. But that
and it's also got actors that we some who we already know and love, and then actors we would come to know and love. Evelyn Ankers was in this one, and Claude Rains is in this. And Bela Lugosi, he's the werewolf that turns Lon Chaney Jr. into a wolf.
That's right.
I think for all that stuff, I feel pretty comfortable putting it in God tier.
And I was gonna say, when it comes to Lon Chaney going through hell with makeup, that will not save those later Mummy movies, unfortunately. But instead, we're focusing right now on the Wolfman's father, Claude Rains, because he played the Phantom of the Opera. And I will be 100% honest, this was the first Universal monster movie I ever saw. And the reason is I was such a big nerd for the musical, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, that I was like, I need to watch every version of Phantom of the Opera. And so I found like a VHS of this movie, and that's kind of how I saw it. And
nice.
I'll hear what you guys think, but I don't think it's very good.
First, it's the only one of these in color.
Yep.
So that's like the not probably the best one to watch first, because you're like, all right, maybe they'll all be in color, and then it's like, whoop. I also loved Phantom, the play, like the musical, that music, like my parents loved that. I had that drilled into my head growing up. I loved that. I loved the original one. I was just kind of like scratching my head a lot of the time with this, wondering it's beautiful to look at. Like, I think it's photographed really well. I think the color is just like soaks through the film on this movie, and it's like wonderful and all that. It almost feels more like a Hammer horror take on what's going on, but it also, they change too much and they truncate a lot, and I don't feel like they're focusing on quite the right stuff, like quite the right beats exactly, and it feels a little more rushed. So I think I'm very much like, I hate to trash. I think we're gonna get a lot worse, so I don't want to trash this, but I'm kind of on it.
Yeah, I would say for sure, because it's not a bad movie. It's maybe not a great Phantom of the Opera, but from a technical standpoint, I remember we were talking a lot about, they shot this in Technicolor, if memory serves, so it looks really great. I think the costumes are wonderful.
Some of the singing, right? The singing. I remember the opera, like, I think, and when I'm sitting back watching a monster movie, going, the opera is my favorite part, though. Like, that's a problem, right?
Yeah, so I think as a Phantom of the Opera story, it's a little bit lackluster, but there is still quite a bit of good stuff in there.
Okay, well, we get another sequel here for a movie monster. It is The Invisible Man Returns. I believe this time played by Vincent Price, the legend himself. Where do we put The Invisible Man Returns?
They're gonna like remake this, right, when Abbott and Costello meet them.
Yep.
So and I never really dug this story. The only thing saving this movie is Vincent Price, and he's got the perfect voice to be a sightless, like an actor you never see on screen. But I so wish he almost played one of the other roles, because I love Vincent Price and I love watching his like crazy evil faces he can make when he's smirking and stuff. But I feel like that's the only saving grace of this, is the Vincent Price. I think it had something to do with a coal mine takeover after a family member died.
He's framed for a murder or a death, and he becomes invisible to clear his name. Not a terrible plot, and it's great that Vincent Price is in there. I don't want to put it in the same category as Dracula. That Dracula in All Right is killing me right now. Because
it's a perfect, but it's a perfect like sober moment, I feel like, to get you back baseline, almost being like, all right.
Yeah, you want to put it in or would you say that it's all right?
Well,
I'm more in the category for this one, unfortunately. Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Now we come to arguably the last of the Universal movie monsters, right there before the atomic, boom with all the other kind of giant monsters. Gilman, he was the last of the real classic Universal monsters, and the first creature from the Black Lagoon. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I think this one is probably my favorite one.
Yeah, the original creature.
I really dig this one.
This is your favorite, like, of all of them?
Of all of them, I think the first Creature from the Black Lagoon is probably my favorite.
It's not a bad choice. I know. Yeah, I think that means we have to put it in God tier.
I mean, I know.
Not on my account. Like,
no.
I have a freaking Creature from the Black Lagoon tattoo. So like. Believe me when I say it's going in God tier. Like, he's wearing 3D glasses on my leg, like popping out of the water. But like, yeah, this movie, I hadn't seen this in forever, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is like Jaws before Jaws. This is all this, like, the tension in this movie just made my palms sweat. Like, it had been a couple films. I remember thinking to Dan, like, that I'd been this worked up, over a movie, and getting this again as a new creature. They're just nailing the creature design and everything.
Yeah, I think that because so many iconic movies owe a debt to Creature from the Black Lagoon, that's kind of why I wouldn't have chosen that to be the movie to like introduce someone to this world of movies. Because it's real easy to like watch this and be like, oh, I've seen this like 100 times. It can be real. I think a lot of people might just forget about the fact that it all had to start somewhere, and this is kind of where it started. And I can't remember how many times we talked about Jaws when we were talking about Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I think just based on how much it has influenced everything, every like aquatic movie ever since, deserves to be in God tier.
Yep.
All right, so it is in God tier. There's a couple more movies on here, but they're pretty much all sequels at this point, apart from Werewolf of London. Just because we are going pretty long here, I was going to say we make these ones rapid fire.
Sure.
Just kind of go through them quick. So let's just start here. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. First time the monsters are crossing over.
That's good. That's good, right, good. Dan?
Yeah. I would say it's good.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I want to knock against it is I think Bela Lugosi as the monster could have used more from that, but I think the studio kind of screwed him over on that one.
100%.
Yeah, but I think they melded those two worlds very well.
Well, we got a couple more monster mashes here because then they met Abbott and Costello in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
God tier.
Definitely God. In fact, this might be one that I would recommend as a first one.
I was just about to say that. I wasn't thinking about it when I was asked the question, but it's the one I watch every October because it's funny.
Yeah, it's Ghostbusters. Like, that's how I think of it. Totally.
Yeah. All right. Then a little more serious then is House of Frankenstein, the first of two of the house.
First. Oh, that's with the traveling wagon and they go.
Yes, with Karloff. And they sink in the mud at the very end.
Yeah. Oh, right. I remember kind of being on that one.
Yeah. They get rid of Dracula in a really bad way.
Yes, I did not like. Was that with Carradine?
Yeah, John Carradine.
Oh, no, I was not happy with that.
Well, it doesn't get any better for John Carradine because then House of Dracula happens and his name's in the title. He is pretty useless again.
I like it about as much.
Yeah, I think it's a little better, but I wouldn't put it up there with Dracula. But I can't, now that that's where that is, everything has its place.
All right, and then Abbott and Costello come back again.
Okay.
The Invisible Man.
This is trash. Like,
trash.
I'm not afraid to say that. Like, what happened there?
Look, let me just say we have found things to like in all of these movies. We don't do the show with the intention of saying, all right, is this garbage? We always try to find the good stuff. And so, on some level, I still like Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, but it's way too derivative to be good.
But it was a two movie thing. Like, they started in one profession. I think they were inspectors or something, and then they became boxing managers. And it's like, what? So.
And you tease Vincent Price being the Invisible Man at the end of the last one.
Right.
And then it's just some guy.
Yep.
In the next one, and it's really disappointing. But speaking of Invisible, we have all the Invisible Man sequels. So the Invisible Agent, Invisible Man's Revenge, and the Invisible Woman.
Okay. All right. I think the best of them is probably the Invisible Woman. Now, the more I think of it, like it's so hard. That's like a fashion show, that's why it just seems like I don't want to say it's trash because it has that amazing stunt at the end. It has like one of the Three Stooges is in it. The freaking Wicked Witch of the West is in that movie. Like, there's so many crazy things going on.
But it is so far removed from everything else in this list.
It's a
comedy.
What I mean?
It's So in my own listing, because I ranked all these movies, I have it very low, not because it's bad. I think it does a lot of things really good. But if your goal is to like get into a Universal Studios monster movie, it fails on most levels.
Agreed.
And so as a Universal monster movie, I would say it's trash. But as a slapstick comedy, like sci-fi comedy, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, but I agree with Dan. We'd probably have to trash that. We're probably going to have to trash The Invisible Man's Revenge. As much as I love Invisible Agent because it's like a World War II film. It's like an
action movie.
Yeah, but I mean, he goes and he's killing Nazis, it's awesome. And it's like, they're based off of real guys at the time. Like, it's 1944 when the movie comes out, I think, or something like that. So
let's do Invisible Agent in all right.
Or just We could put Invisible Agent into but I
we
would
got we got to get some more movies in the all right.
We'll get there though. I think we'll get there.
I'll put it at the top of but then
Okay.
Invisible Man's Revenge, trash.
Yeah, I don't even remember what was going on in that one.
Speaking of not very good, now we get into all the Mummy sequels.
Oh, brother.
Yeah,
So
and
let's make quick work of these.
These are not
very
in chronological order either, so I can't remember what happens in what. They all kind of borrow from each other.
I believe it's the Mummy's Hand, the Mummy's ghost, person tomb.
The first one was the pseudo Abbott and Costello guys.
Correct. I'd put that in
Yeah, that's Then there was the one with the mummy in New Orleans.
I think that's the last. Why do I feel like that's?
That might be
the next one was the Mummy's Tomb, I believe, which was the follow-up to the Mummy's Hand. Remember, we get the but everybody who survived in the first one.
Yeah, so it comes to America and it's on campus, right? Mummy goes to college.
Sort of, yeah. Let's put that in because I do think that's about the same. Let's do which one's the Mummy's Curse versus the Mummy's Ghost?
I think it's Mummy's Curse.
I would put the other two in trash probably because I can't even tell them apart.
I remember the last one really disappointed me.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, which was also probably what's the one where they used that firehouse? That's Mummy's. That's the one.
The third one of the chorus series.
So I think that one is whichever one is. I think that's the last one with the house burning down. Okay, I don't remember which one it is. I want to say it might be Ghost, where the only good part is at the very end when he carries the girl off into the mud, and she actually becomes she decays and becomes like the mummy, and it's like that's cool. Killing off the love interest in a Universal monster movie. Wish the rest of the movie would have been as original or engaging, but
I feel like they did that with Son of Dracula too, right? They let her die at the end.
Well, speaking of Son of Dracula, I know there's two movies before it, but you teased it at the beginning, and now I just want to hear just Son of Dracula. I have a feeling is probably going in trash.
I mean, it's up to Dan, but if I had my say.
There's good stuff in Son of Dracula, but it is wonky, and I think Lon was miscast there.
I don't like the mustache is cool. There were some cool shots with the bog. I love the concept of him hiding his coffin underwater. Like who would ever look there? Sorry for cursing.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay. So there, it's not, and conceptually it's cool, but he's not the son of Dracula. All right, and they blow the whole Alucard thing in the first scene, you know, and he has to ride shotgun in a car. The indignity of it just always burned me so hard from the start. So I mean, I'm not gonna watch it again.
I'm fine putting it in trash. That's okay.
If it was really his son, I'd have been so happy.
So I will be 100% honest. These final 5 films here are the ones I have not seen. So
okay,
Revenge of the Creature, the second of the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
I think that's good. That's basically Jurassic Park before Jurassic. It's like Jaws 3. It's King Kong, right, Dan? Like that's what you basically explained to me, is that the creature from the Black Lagoon was conceived as like a King Kong type, where first they would capture him and then they would put him on display and he would go crazy. And
yes, but
I think the first movie where they caught him, and then they made the second movie where they put him on display and he goes crazy.
But I think the movie itself is too focused on this weird, sort of love triangle for it to be good.
Oh man, you always hate the love triangles.
I do. So I'm gonna take back my, or I'm gonna make the decision here. It's gonna go in all right.
Yep. Fair.
Because I think it is mostly a good creature movie, but there's a couple things that set it back. Creature Walks Among Us, I would put. Where do you want to put that?
I was gonna say that's all right as well, because that really surprised me with a lot of the they really went hard sci-fi with that, as far as maybe we could use the creature's biology that exist in outer space and change our being so we could live underwater, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. I love that concept.
Yeah. She-Wolf of London, that should go in trash for similar reasons to The Invisible Woman.
Well,
I did not even know that movie existed. I
So,
knew of Werewolf of London, had no idea
yeah.
about She-Wolf.
I almost want to bump up Invisible Woman to F because She-Wolf of London, there should be a lower one because she doesn't even turn into a wolf.
That's
She's
true.
like, it's almost like a derogatory term, She-Wolf.
Ooh.
You know, it reminds me of Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. Like,
Yeah. Werewolf of London should go under good, I think, because
mhm.
it is a good werewolf movie. It's just not Lon Chaney as the Wolfman, so I think people forget about it.
And we have two Wolfmen in that, which will sort of kind of become a staple sometimes of the story. And we have the Vasquez rocks, right, Dan?
That's right. That's
In
right.
that, maybe the first filmed appearance of them in a movie, possibly. And that scientist was really ahead of his time. He was like a sci-fi, self-driving car, smart house kind of scientist.
And the werewolf transition is pretty iconic. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, and then finally, Abbott and Costello meet the mummy.
Oh boy, these
Trash
guys. Yeah, unfortunately, like I think I was 2 for 2 with the Abbott and Costello movies when we were watching them.
Yeah,
because the one that's not on here that we included was when they met Jekyll and Hyde. We did that as sort of like an added extra, but that's actually quite good. I would actually put that in the all right category if it was here.
Same. And the original Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney is not here also, but I would probably put that under good.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely the Lon Chaney one is probably one of the best Phantom versions.
Yeah.
The Hammer version isn't very good with Herbert Lom.
Right.
I have a soft spot for the Robert Englund one where it's like a slasher movie and he's like it's a weird supernatural one, but that one is really entertaining.
Did Gerard Butler play him too?
Yes.
Yes, he did. He was in the movie adaptation of the musical, and he's not very good in it, but I do like that movie.
Okay.
Despite his flaws, but that is our ranking. Quite the list.
Wow.
I salute you, gentlemen, for sitting through some of those trash ones. I'm really not a fan. I'm really not a fan of those Mummy sequels.
The only thing that City